my name is Leah. Welcome back to my channel. I have mentioned already a few times that the next book that I'm going to be working on is a middle grade. The problem with that, however, is that I haven't read a ton of middle grade, which isn't good, you know. There's the whole thing about how you're supposed to be reading a lot of modern stuff in your genre to know not only kind of what's hot on the market, but like what's been overdone, just getting a general feel for style and theme and stuff like that that isn't gonna exclude you from writing in that space. So, in an effort to A, become more familiar with the middle grade fantasy genre, B, kind of hone in on my own middle grade writing voice, and C, research some stuff that are specific about the type of story that I'm trying to write, I've decided to read a crap ton of books in preparation for writing my next book. So, I've already begun this process. As soon as I decided I wanted to read a bunch of middle grade, the first thing I did was check out Sisters Grimm book number 1 from the library. I think that one's called The Fairy Tale Detectives. I loved these books as a child, but I unfortunately decided I was too old for them at one point, got rid of them, regretted it in college, and now I'm trying to collect all of the books again, specifically the old covers. It's a whole thing. I'm missing book 1, that's why I had to check it out from the library. I read it in like a day, it was phenomenal. I'm very excited to be reading this again. It's really funny learning the things that my brain latched onto and the things that my brain didn't remember, because there was a whole like main character that I just straight up didn't remember was in the book at all. And it's fun like taking these disjointed mental images I have of the book and pairing them with the words that I'm actually reading now, because I'm like, why did I think that that giant bridge was there? There was no bridge mentioned. What on earth was I imagining as a 6th grader? I have finished books 2 and 3 in the series so far. This is upside down. So I've done 3 books of my middle grade reading research extravaganza, but I need to put a pause on this series before I get too far into it, because while this is helpful in reminding me the stuff that I love about middle grade, because these were books that I loved as a middle schooler, they are not helpful in terms of them being modern. These came out a very long time ago. Well, not a very long time ago, but they're definitely not recent by any means. And I need to dip my toes into some modern middle grade. One of those that I have started is called The Girl and Her Ghost. Is that what it's called? The Girl and a Ghost? Something like that. Or The Ghost and His Girl? Can't remember the author, and I can't look it up right now because it's an audiobook and I'm filming with my phone. But this is basically a book from the point of view of a particular ghost spirit. I can't remember what it's specifically called in the book because it has to do with some sort of mythology. But he is paired with this old lady who dies in chapter 1, and now he must find some of that old lady's blood, aka a relative of that old lady, to become his new master, because that's just how it works. And instead of going to her daughter, who is very like uptight, strict sort of mom figure, he finds the granddaughter, and as the granddaughter is growing older, they have their relationship. They're both like very lonely souls, and so it's kind of about their friendship kind of forming and them coming together in that way. I'm only about like 30% through it, so I still have a ways to go. But I'm really loving the atmosphere of the book. It's not super voicey in terms of like being loud and obnoxious with the voice, which is sort of what I think about when I think about middle grade. Obnoxious isn't the right word. I don't know. Voice in middle grade is incredibly important. And the voice in this book is done very well, but it's in a relaxed sort of, I don't know. It feels like a storybook. I'm not making any sense at all because voice and feelings and all of that are so abstract that I have trouble translating that into words. That's what I'm reading right now. I also wanted to read A Snicker of Magic, and I also wanted to read 2 other books, one of them being called Epic, which I also have started. This isn't a middle grade book, it's a young adult book, but it has to do with a virtual reality world, which is sort of what I want to incorporate into my book. I also want to read Ready Player One, because I've never read Ready Player One, and again, it has to do with the whole like virtual reality world. And I just kind of want to see like some stuff that's been done in that space. I found it difficult to find any middle grade that has to do with virtual reality / MMORPG games. So if you have any suggestions for middle grade books to do with that, I would love to hear them. I definitely want to check those out. But for now, I'm kind of having to dip into the young adult space for those types of books. So that is my plan for the next week or two, is to just be reading all of these sorts of books. And that is my plan for this vlog, is to take you along as I sort of navigate trying to research for my next book. Okay, we have a bit of a problem. Not like, I don't know, something getting in the way, but just the fact that I'm not reading, which is not good when the whole point of me reading the books that I'm reading right now is to research them in order to be better at the book that I'm about to start writing. Something I was doing in the summer, more specifically, was I was making it a point to read for 30 minutes in the morning before I did anything else. And I think that I need to start doing that again. Number one, because I did really like the way that it kind of like got my brain into the mindset of storytelling, if that makes sense. Number two, because it sort of forced me to be continually reading and sort of refilling the well. And number three, as much as I want to be the person who, after the workday is over, picks up a book or like reads before bed, I am simply not. I do that sometimes, especially when I'm in the middle of a good book and I feel motivated to do that. Most of the time, I just feel so tired after working and so mentally exhausted that I don't want to put in the extra effort to actually read words on a page and imagine them in my head. Not that that takes that much effort at all, but it's just, I don't know, there's something so easy about putting on YouTube or just sitting down and watching something on Netflix. Like, it's like, I don't know, I can't help myself from eating the candy of entertainment when I need to be not doing that. So this morning I continued reading Epic. I got to the 36% mark on the ebook that I'm reading. I've taken so long on this, I actually had to renew my checkout at the library. And I unfortunately let my checkout of The Girl and the Ghost go over the limit, but because I knew I was focused on Epic right now, I'll just recheck that one out when I'm finished with Epic. The other issue I'm having is I had that book as an audiobook for the specific purpose of being able to listen to it on walks and while I'm cleaning and all that kind of stuff, but I've started listening to one of my favorite podcasts again called Thornvale. It's an actual play podcast where they are playing Monster of the Week, which is a TTRPG gaming system, and I've gotten sucked back in, and unfortunately, well, fortunately for Thornvale, but unfortunately for my reading habits, I have been listening to that instead while I do my chores and go walking, because I just like really want to know what happens next every time. Anyways, those are my reading struggles right now, but we're going to start the reading in the morning habit up again, and we're going to get the stuff done because today is February 9th. It's a Wednesday, and on my little writing schedule, I have myself set to start writing this book next Monday on the 14th. So I need to get on this. I'm already outlining it, which means like I should have already finished all these books, but maybe continuing on with this and continuing to entrench myself in middle grade voice and middle grade books in that world, it'll still be good while I'm drafting. It'll still be good to be checking in with that genre. Hello again. It's been a hot second since I've actually filmed an update for this video. To catch you up on where I'm at for reading, I did finish Epic. This was a book that I read in middle school, and it works as a standalone for the most part. I didn't realize it was actually the first in a trilogy, so I'm interested to potentially be reading the rest of this trilogy. I also did get about a third of the way through The Girl and the Ghost. I talked about this one briefly earlier. I didn't get much further into it, but I have been really enjoying it. My biggest problem really was and continues to be the fact that it's an audiobook, and whenever I just want to put something on to listen to, I typically lean more towards podcasts or live streams. And I also don't really drive anywhere because I work from home. So I haven't really had the opportunity to listen to it much, or at least I have and have picked other things. I said at the beginning that I wanted to read Ready Player One. I didn't end up picking this one up. And I also said I wanted to read A Snicker of Magic.
Another one I didn't pick up. My main goal for this was to read more contemporary middle grade, like stuff that's come out in the past like 3 years. And really the only book I picked up that falls into that category was The Girl and the Ghost. I ended up going back to the Sisters Grimm series. I finished book 4 and I started book 5. In the midst of this too, I needed to finish Into the Woods, which is a writing craft book, so I worked on finishing that, which I think can still tie into reading as research for a book because it's kind of, you know, informing my own writing style, writing preferences, learning experience, all that kind of stuff. And especially for this book specifically, I did want to lean into 5-act structure, which is what's covered in the book. So that one was a good one to have finished as well. So overall, I wanted to briefly talk about some lessons that I learned during this, not experiment, but time of reading for research. Specifically about middle grade, I've kind of realized that you can be a lot more descriptive and use a wider vocabulary than I thought. Not that I thought it had to be too dumbed down, but I kind of wondered, and especially because middle grade is so much shorter than YA, you know, I was kind of unsure about how extensive description and vocabulary and stuff like that could be. I'm glad for this because I really hate babying kids and I hate reading books that have children characters, and the way that they're described and the way that those kids speak is like infantilizing sort of. And books are meant to be learning opportunities too, so introducing some like wider and bigger vocabulary is always good. Context clues exist for a reason, and the dictionary exists for a reason. If they don't know a word, they can just Google it. Another thing that I noticed in the middle grade books that I've been reading is the lesson or the theme doesn't need to be nearly as overt as I would have assumed. I think going into middle grade, I kind of had this perception that, you know, the theme or the lesson has to be a little bit more surface level, like it has to be a little bit more obvious, a little bit more clear, maybe stated outright. But I found that while yes, the theme / moral of the story is always going to be implicit in the plot of pretty much any story you write, depending of course on how heavily you lean on thematic elements. But there aren't nearly as many introspective moments in middle grade as there are in young adult, or conversations about that moral question or that theme. The middle grade books that I was reading at least are much more about like the external. They're much more about that plot, and then that theme is just like not really spoken about but sort of demonstrated throughout, and then maybe addressed very short and briefly a few times throughout. I also learned a little something about myself. I've always known I'm a mood reader. Well, not always. I've learned in recent years that I am a mood reader, and this little endeavor that I've been engaging in has really highlighted that for me. I found it really difficult to focus on the books I had to read, which is why it took me so long to get through Epic, and I didn't even finish The Girl and the Ghost, even though I was really enjoying both of those, because my heart wanted to live in nostalgia land and read the whole Sisters Grimm series. At the same time, I do still think that it's important for me to be reading things as research. I think it's important to be intentional with the books that I'm reading. It's only going to benefit my writing to be reading contemporary stuff in the genre that I'm writing. I don't feel like I've gotten enough out of this yet. Like I feel like there's still so much more that I need to read in order to feel comfortable in the middle grade age category. So I've decided that I am going to continue this middle grade reading extravaganza. I don't really know what to call this. I'm going to limit myself to middle grade. I maybe we'll pick up one YA or one nonfiction a quarter, but I'm gonna limit myself to reading middle grade, but within that age category, I'm just gonna read whatever the heck I want. I'm not gonna look for specifically VR video game worlds. I'm not gonna look specifically for mythology retellings. That has to do with a different middle grade book idea I have, but I'm not gonna limit myself to the content of specifically what I'm writing about. I'm just gonna read anything. And I'm also going to lean into that habit of reading for 30 minutes every morning without fail. Like I literally just need to do that every single day in order to make sure that I'm continually progressing in the books that I'm reading and making reading a habit and a priority. Overall, I'm really happy that I specifically took some time to lean into middle grade. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really finding a love for the genre that I always knew was there. Like, I know I like middle grade. It's just that I've been in the young adult age category in terms of just where I am in life for so long that has been my default. And now that I'm kind of aging out of young adult, it's a lot easier for me to go back to middle grade and enjoy it for what it is, and go back to young adult and enjoy it for, you know, the stage of life that it is, and not just as this is speaking to me specifically and personally. I don't know if that makes sense. But let me know if you have any great middle grade recommendations. As always, I will keep you updated in my now seasonal wrap-ups. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.